Hi, everybody. Welcome to yoga practice today. I'm April, and I'm here to guide us through some balance poses today. The first one we're going to do is actually a boat pose, and you wouldn't really even think of it as a balance pose. Most people think of it as a core strengthener, but it is a seated balance pose. So we're going to start with boat pose, and then we're going to do some standing balancing poses. All right. So make sure you got your mat and a couple blocks handy. We will probably need some of those later for today's balance postures. But first, seated pose, right? So boat pose. We're sitting down on our mats, and our knees are going to be bent, and our feet are going to be on the floor. Okay. Now, for boat pose, you want to make sure you're grounded through both of your sit bones, right? The elbows kind of hug the sides a little bit, and all that does is make sure that you stay open across the chest so you're not rounding or hunched forward, right? So we'll always want to kind of be open across the chest here so that we can breathe. Yes? And you'll notice I have my hands already on the backs of my legs, okay? Now you're going to bring your feet together, okay? Bring your feet together. The knees can stay slightly apart for now. We'll see how this goes for us. So I'll walk us through kind of the most basic variation of this pose, and then if you have more strength and skill, you can do the more advanced variation of this pose. So here we go, right? The hands behind the backs of the thighs, where the hamstrings connect here behind the knees. So I lean back on my sit bones, and when I lean back, I'm just leaning back. I'm not rounding back or tipping onto my tailbone. I'm actually on my pelvic bone, right? So as I lean back, I keep my belly engaged. So this is also a core exercise here in our boat pose. And as I lean back, that allows then my feet to come off the floor. Now, if you're new at boat pose, you might just take one foot off the floor and then the other. Okay, or maybe just one at a time. Maybe your core needs a lot of extra strength, and maybe it's just one at a time. Okay, but if you can, you're going to get both feet up off the mat. Okay, the feet can touch. Bring the knees just slightly apart. Okay, so you can stay here and notice, okay, I'm holding the backs of my legs, but I'm not gripping or like shaking, or I'm just barely touching the backs of my legs. Good. And this is for me personally for support. Eventually, the hands release and reach for the feet. And I'm going to breathe. And you'll notice my calves are like parallel to the mat. As you become more advanced at this pose, you can, and I'm going to bring my hands back to my legs again here, straighten the legs. Okay, and my hamstrings are tight, so when I straighten my legs, my torso kind of tips back a little bit more just to counterbalance, right? And I get a little shaky, and I breathe, and I like my knees bent variation. The hands, again, can still stay supporting you, but eventually you want to let the hands go. So legs straight or knees bent slightly, that's up to you and your body. It's all about your breath.